everyone, and welcome once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince!
Hey, Vince, we're doing a regular podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that exciting?
It's been forever, like longer than a month.
Yeah, and we've been doing a lot of these podcast commentaries lately, which we've got more of those coming for you pretty soon. But today we thought we'd do a regular podcast, and today's topic is actually something I got from Browncoat Eric. Eric did a video a few days ago where he was talking about the Marvel comics that are kind of adding movie stuff and trying to make their comics look more like movies, and kind of overall, he was just asking the question: is it okay to make your comics more like the movies, like to try to make them more recognizable for people who don't read comics? A, is it a good, like is it helpful? Is that going to do anything for anyone? And B, is it irritating for those of us that are used to comic continuity being what it is? Because after all, I don't like it when things are different. So so anyway, we're gonna go ahead and kind of talk about that a little bit ourselves. I thought it would be cool to take that topic and springboard into a conversation over here. So thanks, Eric, for that topic. We stole it, and now we're going to run with it.
Thanks, Eric. You can kiss it. I'm sorry. I'm not sure where that came from.
So now, to be nice, this is a video response to Eric. Anyway,
No, we do like Eric, and we appreciate it.
Part of this also is a little bit about Marvel now, and Eric was talking about that too. And part of the reason I wanted to talk about this was because of the whole Nick Fury Jr. thing. Vince, why do you think Marvel feels the need to make sure that there is a black Nick Fury in all of their comics now?
To some extent, I feel like it's, an underestimation of their audience. And I say that full well knowing that I really don't care about the costume design that much. I think it's kind of silly that they think that somebody's not going to look at the giant cape and the Nordic features and go, oh, that's not Thor. Thor looks like Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Or, because Captain America, like, if you would take the wings off his head, people would still recognize him with or without him.
Sure, of course.
Because it's Captain America. And
those costumes are all more or less pretty faithful.
Yeah, they are similar. You're going to look at the red hair and the cat suit, and you're going to say, well, Black Widow. What annoys me about...
No, you won't if you didn't know anything about comics, because prior to that, you wouldn't even know who that was.
You'd be like, look, a hot chick.
You might have seen Iron Man 2, but even there, the Black Widow might not have sunk in, you know?
Is this the Scarlet Spider? No, very different character.
And frankly, you don't ever want Black Widow to sink in, if you know my drift. If you get my drift.
Buzzing! Spit take.
Boy, that wasn't necessary at all. Okay, here's what's weird about all that to me. We know, just from looking at numbers, and we've talked about this before, that the movies don't really get people who have never read comics to read comics. By and large, the movies are not increasing comic book sales. Mm-hmm. So, what's the point? Like, what's the point of trying to make your comics look more like the movies if the people who are reading the comics are already going to the movies? Because, let's face it, they are. You know what I mean? So, you're not doing them you're not really making these changes for some new audience. And that's what Eric was talking about in his video. And I totally agree with him. He said that Marvel and DC also sometimes, but Marvel even more so, seems to have this false impression that there's this phantom audience, this phantom new audience that they're drawing in from the movies to read their comic books. Those people aren't coming. They're not there. So all you're really doing, it seems to me, is risking alienating the people that are already reading your comic books.
I think that I think that it is a phantom audience. I think they're doing this sort of just like, oh, we know that these people are out there, and we don't want to alienate them. And so they're doing something sort of more like just in case, rather than they're doing something that's a smart move.
I think that's ridiculous because it's been going on for years and years and years now. Like, if comic book movies were just this brand new thing, I kind of understood why they were toying with it some, like when X-Men came out, for instance, and then you started seeing like some of the black costumes show up and things like that. Like, I get it.
Suddenly Blade actually looked cool.
Well, that's the thing is when your character in the movie is actually way cooler than the one in the comic, sure, change it, make it different.
Yeah.
The one exception to this rule is Iron Man. They have been making Iron Man in the comics more like the one in the movie, and nobody minds it because he's better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, the design of the armor, it kind of bothers me, though, because...
I'm not talking about armor design. I mean, yeah, okay, fair enough, but I'm just talking about personality-wise. Like the character in the comics now, like, since... I mean, I don't know Iron Man comics that much, so I could be off base on this, but I think since Extremis, really, he's had more of a personality since the Iron Man movies came out.
You know what's interesting is that the Ultimate version of Iron Man is a lot more muted than the Downey Jr. version. But
I don't think Tony Stark was ever as charismatic or sarcastic in the comics prior to the movie. I mean, it's there, but I don't think. I think Downey reinterpreted this character in the right way, and the comics ran with that, and they should have. You know, that's a place. But I don't feel like we're trying to cater to this movie audience. I think this works better, so let's use it.
You know, I think that people will, especially actors. A good writer will create a character that has a little bit of versatility, a little bit of humanity to him, and a good actor will find a way to take that character and run with it. And I think that there are elements of this character, of the Downey version in the comics, that translate well to film, and he just found what was working and ran with that. So... But, I mean, even in the Ultimate comics, I mean, that guy, the current ones, the ones that are coming out right now, they are nothing like Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
And that's what surprises me a little bit, although they're making the armor look surprisingly like it. Like, you look at the cover and
It is the movie armor, yeah.
You know, what kind of bothers me is that it's like they think that people are going to be strolling past and look at the cover of one of these comics and go, hey, that's the guy from the movie, and then they're going to pick it up. First of all, they would have to be put into stores that are not really geeky stores.
And we don't do that as much anymore. You don't see as many comics at like grocery stores and stuff like you used to.
I mean, and you do see
and we
them
don't
to
have
some extent.
newsstands like we used to.
I mean, you go to not a comic book store. You go to a bookstore and they have this little itty bitty rack of comic books that are just like stuck away to where nobody sees them, that people can shop for their comics in shame.
Right, but the operative phrase in what I just said was like we used to. Yeah. I mean, they're there, but not like they used to be.
Yeah, and it's annoying to me that first of all, why put the movie Iron Man on the cover if the Iron Man in the book doesn't look the same?
So, really, does the Iron Man in the book not look like the covers?
Most recent issue of Ultimates that had Iron Man on the cover didn't look like the same Iron Man inside. That's
just obnoxious.
Yeah, it bothers me. I just had this thought. I wonder if, and I know I'm totally blowing smoke, but I'm going to say it anyway. So, to some extent, I know I'm blowing smoke here, but I kind of think that maybe the reason that they are doing so much of this, altering their universe to match the movies a little bit more, is to make their comic books a little more cinematic. Maybe maybe it's not so much that they want people to associate it with the movies because they don't think that they can handle it if it's different. Maybe they think that the movies are what comics should aspire to be like, therefore they're changing it to be more like the movies.
Can I test that, though?
Yeah. I'm not sold on this, I'm just saying something.
That's really interesting, and I hadn't even begun to think of that. I don't like the principle of that idea, because the principle of that idea is because it's in a movie, it's inherently cinematic.
Yeah.
Why is a Nick Fury who looks more like Sam Jackson automatically more cinematic than the original Nick Fury?
Well, I'll say this: maybe it's even sort of like a childlike notion of what would be cinematic. Well, that worked in the movie, so therefore it's got to be cinematic. So maybe they're changing it more closer to what they know has worked in the past. More closer. I can't believe I just said that. Maybe they're changing it closer to something that has worked in the past, but it's really the starry-eyed notion of, well, if we make it the exact same, then we're going to, lightning's going to strike twice, and we're going to catch that mystique that was in the movie. Well, the movie's a significantly different based on the comic books. I mean, even...
That's... When we're talking specifically about the Nick Fury thing, though, that's bogus, because he's been in comic books for a decade. in Ultimate. I don't buy that. Again, I'm not arguing with you. I know you're just saying that maybe that's what they're thinking, but if that's what they're thinking, that doesn't make any sense at all.
I mean, I suppose maybe.
Why does Ultimate have to intrude on regular continuity so much? And I know that I mean you don't like that anyway, and neither do I. But I mean, like I really feel like there's this idea that the movies are more important than the comics because they sell. And we have to... So maybe that is the same idea as what you're talking about. Like, we've got to change the comics to match the movies because the comics are working. But in my head, it's almost more... Or because the movies are working. But in my head, it's more because it's like the old things are outdated. They're too old. We can't use them anymore. We can't have regular... We can't have what Nick Fury used to look like because that's just outdated. That's not how we do it now. Now Nick Fury's black. And I don't know... And it's like, well, we don't want to just straight up retcon. We don't want to do one more a day again because that didn't work out for us so well. So we'll just make up a new character and
Nick Fury has a tan. That's what they're.
so we'll just so we'll just make up this new character and yeah, I mean again it's not a race thing. It's just Nick Fury in mainstream continuity. Look, it's a continuity. They've retconned. We've talked about this. They've retconned things in the past, but unlike DC, they've never just straight up completely rebooted Marvel continuity. They're not doing that with Marvel now. And
one of our viewers pointed something out. Actually, they have rebooted it. It just didn't work, so they stopped. They did Heroes Reborn. They completely stopped everything and just started over from day one. I read the Jim Lee written and drawn Fantastic Four. It was awful.
I didn't think Heroes Reborn was a real reboot, though. I thought that they still had their regular books running along with it.
I thought they'd stopped it, but I'm not certain about that.
I don't think you're right about that.
Well, I'm just quoting a viewer who commented on our video that we did.
Okay, I don't think he's right about that, but I'd have to look it up. I don't know. But Heroes Reborn was really recent, wasn't it?
Well, it was the 90s. I think it was the 90s.
Okay,
I don't know.
Maybe
I sold my copy because it was awful.
Maybe I don't know anything about that. I thought I knew what that was, but maybe I don't. Okay,
well, maybe we need to do some homework. I hadn't thought about it until after the...
Honestly, though, but the thing is, like, I have and have read so much 90s Marvel, like, I really doubt that they would, like do a reboot and then in a couple months be like, no, that's not working, and then automatically bring all their books back to their regular numbering. They weren't renumbering things back then. Like...
Fair enough.
Like, again, I don't see, and I'm not saying that a reboot necessarily would have to renumber things, but, like, for it to be a true reboot where they were completely starting over, don't you think they would?
Like, maybe they're just testing the waters to see if this is what people wanted, but, I mean...
Honestly, I think it's probably, and again, I'd have to look it up, but I thought that thing was more like a false start for something like Ultimate, where it was like they wanted to do another universe kind of thing, but it didn't really work. Because you also had things like Marvel 2, and you had 2099, I mean, they've done alternate continuities lots of times. So that they can do whatever they want to.
I don't know a whole heck of a lot about it. I only read the Fantastic Four one, but I thought I might mention it just because we had a viewer who was like, well, I think we had a few viewers like, what about Reborn? What about Reborn? So,
yeah, okay, whatever. But it's never worked.
Yeah, well, no, you're not wrong.
It never lasted any amount of time at all, so yeah. But anyway, I'm just saying, I think that, I mean, that's not important, I don't think, but...
I think, well, I mean, back to the issue at hand. Right. I think the cinematicness... I'll say that I think we do need more interesting, maybe even positive black characters in comic books. That's not necessarily to say that we have to go out there and make a bunch of them, but I don't necessarily think changing... This
isn't how you do it, though.
No, I mean, that's the thing is that...
the thing about it is, they're not changing Nick Fury. They're just writing out the real one and making up another one. Yeah. And saying, oh, and he's got this son, why is he suddenly important? I mean, okay, I'm sure that they're going to try really hard to make it all make sense, but still, like...
I sort of feel like old readers, readers who are old, I think readers who have been reading and know of the original Nick Fury are really going to resist it if they try to erase original Nick Fury for the Junior.
I would be very surprised, in the Leaf comments, I would be very surprised if there was a single person who has been reading Marvel for any amount of time at all who read that and said, oh, that's cool. I can't imagine anybody said that.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody would say, I don't really like Nick Fury right now. They should get rid of him and use Nick Fury Jr. I'd be like, really? Well, that'd be surprising to me.
Well, nobody would say that because Nick Fury Jr. just got made up. But no, they should just change him to be the one from Ultimate.
Why? First of all, it's a different continuity for a reason.
It's a different character.
Yeah,
but that's the thing, is that Ultimate Nick Fury is a different character. Mm-hmm. That's what I like, but that was the whole point of Ultimate. It wasn't that they were trying to make better versions is that they were doing different things. I really resist that stuff intruding on regular continuity. And again, like if somehow or rather it turns out to be kind of good, I'll eat my words later. But I really don't see how. I mean, look, it's by its very nature really intrusive. And I don't see the point of doing that. Again, it's certainly, I mean, I guess we're talking in circles, but it's certainly not going to bring in new readers, so what's the point? The ones that you already have are going to go, well, we've already got that guy over in Ultimate, why do we need him here? Like I said, it's not a race thing. It's just, we've got that, we already have that character. I like regular Nick Fury, and I also like Ultimate Nick Fury. Why can't they stay in their respective universes where they belong?
You know what I like more than Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Sergeant Fury.
Sergeant Fury, yeah.
From back in the day, Sergeant Fury and Sergeant Rock are two really interesting characters. In fact, I would love to have a Sergeant Rock movie, Sergeant Fury even so. Well, I'm not sure that my syntax made a lot of sense right there, but I think you know what I mean.
Tell me if you would agree with this. I don't think it makes sense, and again, I don't know if this is really the reasoning or not, but I don't think it makes sense to say, well, Nick Fury is too outdated of a character if you're also ever using Captain America.
Fair enough. I mean, I think the reason why original Nick Fury works so well is because he was Sergeant Fury. That's where his style and his personality was just born from that World War II era. So therefore, it really does mix well with Captain America. But I think people are kind of looking towards this guy who's kind of a schemer, and that's what they want nowadays. Why? Because that's what they saw in the movie, and that's what they see in the Ultimate continuity, so that's what they expect from regular continuity. But I'll say even then, I don't necessarily believe that.
They are. I think what I think is that that's what Marvel thinks, and I don't know where they're getting that from.
Yeah. I mean, I do understand why they think that.
I don't.
I mean, well, I'm not saying
the numbers don't show it.
I mean, I think people have a positive reaction to something and they say, oh, that's what they want. So they're trying to give the readers what they want. Like, oh, people like dark stuff, so we're going to create dark everything.
Yeah, and that didn't work.
Yeah, well, some of it worked.
No, it didn't work for sales.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, they quit doing it because it didn't work. I mean, they ultimately realized, I should never say ultimately in the middle of a Marvel conversation. They finally figured out at one point that, we can't, because I'm not talking Dark Reign so much as just dark everything, where like they had, we've talked about this, where they have all like the really muted colors and like everybody's super dark and serious, and it's like we lost all the levity. Marvel in the last couple of years has come back to something a lot more fun and vibrant again, which is why I like it, and why I have many more Marvel books on my pull list than I do DC books right now. And that's not to say that DC doesn't have some fun, vibrant stuff, but, I got my issues with 52, and it's just not as fun as it was a year ago before 52, to me. But this conversation's not about 52. The thing is, I don't know why they can't just straight up learn this lesson that you can't have these big, giant, just blanket statements to fix everything. People want dark, so that's what we're going to give them. People want the movies, so that's what we're going to give them. No, people who want to go see movies like your movies. That doesn't mean that the people who read your comic books want your comic books to look just like your movies.
I think another issue that gets risen here, and we've been talking about this a little bit, but not just with Nick Fury, but when you start pulling from your comic books. I mean, if your movies are heavily influenced by the Ultimate continuity, and if your movies are heavily influenced by your regular continuity, and then you try to make both of them reflect the movies, you're taking both continuities and characterizations and everything, and just like putting them in a big pot and stirring them together. And
then it's its own thing. And you also got to keep in mind that movies and comics are different mediums, so you do different things with them.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's the point of having multiple continuities if you're going to make them exactly like a single continuity?
Yeah. Yeah, if they're all just going to converge into the same thing eventually, it just seems kind of pointless to me. And also, it's not like it's going to stay like that, because if eventually they start making movies that look a little bit different than that, then and this becomes their mandate, then they're going to change it again. Now, there are some things that they're doing to get things. I mean, I don't 100% hate this. There are other things that they do sometimes that kind of get things into people's periphery, and that's not a problem for me. Like, for instance, they're doing a book right now called Avengers Assemble, which I am reading. And I originally had no interest in it because it looked like just an obnoxious tie-in book for the movie. And when all the Avengers characters from the movie were in one book together, I was like, really? That's what they're doing? It's actually in continuity, which is really sort of strange, but I don't really care so much about that. Well, one thing that is kind of weird, of course, is that Hulk is just kind of regular Hulk, while at the same time you got Aaron's Hulk, which is a totally different thing right now, so that's sort of strange. But
I would support that, but that's the continuity error.
But what I like about it is that it doesn't feel like the movie. It's those characters, but it feels like a regular Marvel book, and it's Bendis, and it's Bendis not decompressed. It doesn't feel like a Bendis book. Like enough action actually happens in an issue for me to be okay with spending $4 on it, and yay, and it's Thanos, which is the reason I'm reading it. So my point is, so they've got the characters from the movie, and they've got Thanos, which was set up in Avengers. And then they've got, issue 3, they brought in Guardians of the Galaxy. A week before they announced that they're making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I have no problem with that. It's getting all these things kind of into our periphery, and it's not so much that stuff's not so much trying to make your comics look like the movies as just getting you jazzed for things they're about to do in the movies. And I don't mind that as much.
No, that's fair. I mean, you're saying, hey, listen, this is coming out, and you should be excited about it for this reason.
And I kind of am. I mean, they're doing, and by the way, I think it's super, super cool they're doing the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I think that's really neat. And the reason I think it's so cool is because that's a book that wasn't on anybody's radar. Most people haven't read it. A lot of people have no idea what it is. And I think it's really cool that they're taking a chance on something like that. That like they've made enough money now, and these movies have been performing well enough that this is a different topic, I guess. But Marvel Studios is now totally okay, it looks like, with trying things and throwing stuff out there and they don't seem to even mind if that movie doesn't perform really super huge. They're just like, now we can do things that are more comic booky, and I really love that. I mean, like they've gone so far in a comic book direction. I mean, think about what Guardians of the Galaxy is. They've gone so far in a comic book direction now that they're going to make a live action movie with a freaking talking raccoon. That's fantastic.
That's a good point.
Did you ever think you were going to see Rocket Raccoon?
No.
I was talking to Dan the other day. Dan goes, do you ever think you'd see Rocket Raccoon before Flash?
You know,
in a movie?
I was about to mention that that's really different from what DC does. I mean, DC's like, let's mine all of our minor properties before we get to our major people, because apparently they don't think they can do the major people in movies correctly unless it's Batman or Superman.
I think part of it, too, though, is because a lot of their minor properties are really dark.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
because they've done really a lot popular. Of Vertigo.
Like, excuse me, I almost said Punisher. Marvel Max and Marvel Epic have never been huge things. I mean, people have read them and enjoyed them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people read Max and go, oh, Max is great. No, people hear Vertigo and get excited.
No, not a single title in Max has ever sold like Sandman or Hellraiser or any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Although the Hellraiser comics were pretty interesting.
No, but I'm just saying, like, the Max comics have never sold as well as those, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, wait. Hellblazer?
Hell...
You know
yeah,
what's...
Yeah, Hellblazer, yeah. John Constantine. Vertigo.
Yeah.
We're talking Vertigo.
I thought you said Hellraiser.
I meant to say Hellblazer.
Yeah. Well, Hellraiser was an epic book from Marvel.
No, I know it was. Yeah, that's hilarious. Okay, that's... Well, anyway, I was thinking Hellblazer when I said that. Whatever, that's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Yeah,
okay,
that's what I was stopped for a second. I was like, that's awesome.
I have no idea what we're talking about, and why does Cap know about that book?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I'm like, really? You know about Hellwait? What?
I really don't. I don't. Well, I haven't read it. I've heard of it, but
they're actually pretty good. I mean, if you're anyway, that's entirely off topic. I would say they're better than the movies.
Do you ever have that thing where we forget we're making a podcast and then we're like we just start talking?
I think we just did that.
Yeah, I think we just did that.
Oh, dude, you remember the other day where we got that was awesome.
But anyway, I think it's my whole point is I think it's okay to try to get your readers jazzed about movies that are coming out, because those are going to be a lot of your audience, you know. So I mean that's especially movies that wouldn't necessarily perform super well. Like, you have to expect that they're going to start doing more Ant-Man stuff, and I mean, you know, they started doing a lot more Hawkeye stuff when Avengers was coming out. Although they don't need to sell Avengers to the comic book readers, you know. I can see why they won't try to sell Guardians of the Galaxy to the comic book readers, because they wouldn't necessarily know anything about that book, and they're gonna start doing a monthly Guardians of the Galaxy book before that movie comes out. Of course, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you if you were Marvel? Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's like advertising, and people will pay for it. So, I mean,
win-win, and maybe it'll be good. You know, I'd like a good new Guardians of the Galaxy book. I'll read it.
Yeah, I mean, especially for a single book. I mean, you introduce them in Avengers, and then you put out this book, and the people who are, you know, big comic book fans tend to just go see the movies. I mean, I'm not gonna buy it, but that's because I tend not to buy much mainstream stuff anymore.
Yeah,
and that's kind of sad. But, hang on, let me weep in our podcast for a minute.
Whatever. I just happen to read a lot of comics. I don't know. But anyway,
I wouldn't try to attack you on that one.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, I read a lot of mainstream, because if I'm reading comics, I'm mostly reading mainstream, and that's what I like. But anyway, I don't know. Any final thoughts on that? Just probably get rants.
Yeah, I think that there is reason. Like, if you have something that's good that you want, or good from the movies that you want to be echoed in the comic book somewhere, I think you should have free license to do it. But I think you should at least also have the self-reflection to know when it is important, or where it should fit in. And well,
fit in's the operative word, right?
Exactly.
You don't want it to be something that just like totally intrudes, where it's obvious that you're just trying to make everything look like the movies because you think for some reason that's going to make you more money. I think part of the reason it's tough to talk about is because I don't understand the motivation. Mm-hmm. I just don't get the motivation entirely.
I think the motivations are largely what we've been talking about. I just don't think that they really know. They're like, I feel like it's a bunch of guys sitting in a room going, "This is a good idea. Do this." And you know, that's sort of the corporate mindset. That
maybe almost like an of course kind of thing, where it's just like, well, of course we'd make it look more like the movies, you know? Of course. But anyway, hey, do you have a rant?
I do have a rant. Do you have a rant?
Of course.
Of course. Indeed. I will occupy this podcast.
Go ahead, Vince.
But yeah. I've said something similar to this before, maybe even exactly like this, but comics are a visual medium.
Time for a circle rant.
Comics are a visual medium. If you're creating a comic book, you're creating something that has action, has rising action. I'm getting really annoyed when I read comic books, especially modern comics, because we should be sort of moving away from this past idea. It's there's so much, like, especially in this Shadow book right now. Now the Shadow is okay. I don't hate it. I think there's good things about it. In fact, I just quoted something earlier to Cap that I thought was really clever and funny. But the dialogue is anachronistic for what it is. It doesn't necessarily match how... I don't believe that a couple of Japanese guys are sitting around talking with American colloquialisms, or at least English colloquialisms, considering... what's his name? Garth Ennis is Irish. But there is slang that's being tossed around by a couple of Japanese guys, and I'm presuming that they're probably using their own language, and I understand that what you're trying to do is create something that has the correct emotional weight, or not necessarily emotional weight, but the correct emphasis, and by using the colloquialisms of the main audience that's going to be reading this, then you're...
Yeah, they've got to understand what the heck you're looking at. But...
Yeah, so, I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but it doesn't make sense.
Are they also dated colloquialisms? Like, are they...
No,
are
they're modern.
Well, that's what I mean. Are they modern that they wouldn't even say back then? Because that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Where it's like, not only would they not say it in that language, but it also didn't even exist 100 years ago.
Yeah, I really feel like the profanity that they use, the way they use it, it's really modern day. And I do feel like
that kind of thing turns me off immediately to period stuff. And look, I'm not a history buff. I'm not super picky about that kind of stuff. But it does bug me when because like, you lose credibility. What's the point in doing period if it doesn't feel like the period?
Now, I've seen a play that had intentionally anachronistic dialogue. in the second act of the play. And I thought that was really interesting because it was sort of this degradation of how we see history. This is not that. This is a problem, and I know I started this rant going one way, but I totally went the other one because I thought this one up immediately. But
maybe you haven't done this one yet.
No, I don't think I have. But I feel like it's worthwhile to try something, but I feel like he's trying things that he ought not try with the Shadow. I feel like somebody says, "I want a modernized version, something that's hip for the new crowd." Okay, that's fine, do that, but you don't have to. There's a better way to do it.
Well, if you're going to do that, you might as well go all the way and set it in present day.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is that nobody wanted a present day Shadow. I know you don't really like
present day Shadow, but
I mean, it doesn't make much sense. Granted, what's his name? Howard Chaykin did a present day Shadow, and that's the series that inspired this one the most. So I understand. I mean, there was an interview done with Garth Ennis that said Howard Chaykin Shadow is going to be the thing that that has the most effect on my Shadow, and that's okay. I mean, the Shadow that came out, I think it was around '86, was had a lot of effect on the comic book industry. I get it. I mean, I understand why you'd want to do that, but still,
yeah, it's like Frank Miller Daredevil or something.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
People are going to call back to it.
Yeah,
but if you're going to set it in the '40s, set it in the '40s or '30s or whatever it is right now.
Yeah,
I forget.
Oh, but, I thought it was earlier than that even. Okay.
Well,
no. You're probably right. I didn't read it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that the Shadow is always around World War II. So I don't know if this is like coming up to or during. I forget at the moment actually.
Yeah,
but
it's at least got to be set in a time where there was radio.
There's just so much dull stuff happening in this comic because there's just people sitting around talking about the Shadow or about things that happened during the war. And since it's a visual medium, this is a problem. But since they're doing so much of this. He should really try to at least make it believable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of feel
you can do alternate history stuff, but again, you have to make it. I mean, like anything with story. And here's us being broken records, like we often are. It's got to fit inside of its own, inner dialogue. I mean, whatever it is, it's got to make sense within the rules of its own universe.
I'll say this, and I feel like I don't mean this to be an insult, but it kind of comes off that way in my head. I have not finished reading issue 4 of The Shadow. It just came out today as of we're recording this podcast. And the first few pages, I just keep forgetting that this character, whose name I completely forget, I think he's called the Water Buffalo or something. I feel like I'm reading an issue
It's a
of...
Flintstones crossover?
I feel like I'm reading an issue of The Boys with less gross stuff in it. I feel like this character, weird. Who is this big savage guy, is Love Sausage. Now, for those of you who know who Love Sausage is, I apologize for you having to know that. But I really feel like this is the same character just written into a different book. Especially for The Shadow, it feels really strange.
I gotta tell you, that is the single best reason I've ever heard to not read a comic book. The fact that there is someone called Love Sausage.
Yeah, I could tell you why, but that might make our podcast inappropriate for some of our younger listeners. Yeah, I don't recommend The Boys. I recommend the first 10 or so issues, but after that, no. And The Shadow...
I've read a lot of comics like that.
Indeed. The Shadow... And this current Dynamite Shadow series, I think it's... I don't know. I think it might go somewhere. We'll see.
You're going to keep reading it?
Yeah, I'm going to keep reading it. I mean, I have, except for the Street and Smith comics and the Archie comics, which are all, like, $50 for the Archie comics and, like, $1,000 or so for the Street and Smith. I have every Shadow comic, so I'm going to keep on.
I really enjoy hanging out with Vince a lot whenever he's reading a comic book that he doesn't like very much. Because I just have to listen to him talk about it all the time. It's hilarious.
I think it could go somewhere, but it hasn't gone anywhere yet. And that's what bothers me. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's my rant. I'm sorry for taking up so much time with this particular rant.
Can we get that on camera sometime? Just going wrong. Okay. This will be a short one. I've been listening to the radio, driving around, and I keep hearing this ad for a casino. I think it's Argosy Casino. I don't remember which casino it is. It's not important which casino it is. What's silly is this ad for this casino keeps using the theme from Cheers. It's like this reduxed version of the theme from Cheers. So it's like, where everybody knows your name. It's a casino! So they don't.
Where everyone gambles in shame.
Yeah, nobody would know your name. Like the point is the whole commercial is acting like it's like a small town friendly environment. It's a freaking casino. Like, that just really bothers me. Like, that's like the dictionary definition of false advertising. Because the thing is, in Cheers, that was the whole idea, was that, like, everybody knew everybody. Like, you can't do that. Okay, we live in Kansas City. You can't do that in a big city. It's goofy. Like, and it's like obviously stupid. I don't know. It just
they call it a casino, but it's really just 2 poker tables and a slot machine.
Wouldn't it be great if you walked in there and it really was that? Where you're just like, where like there were only like 6 people who were ever there ever, and like one of them was a therapist who could never like get a long-term girlfriend. Well, anyway, I don't really have anything else to say about it. I just that kind of thing bugs me. Where I'm just like, at least make your advertising make sense. Like who does not hear a commercial like that and go, well, no, wait a minute.
The casino formerly known as Jim's Pub.
Wouldn't it be great if you went there and like it was a casino, but like the only gambling you could do was like pool?
Who's betting on me to win? Not me. I'm tired of betting on that guy.
It's just a guy standing next to a pool table with a wad of cash. Like, that's the whole casino.
Just Paul Newman hanging around, back from the dead.
Or if it was like a regular casino and you got there and they made you wear a name tag.
Where everybody can look at your name.
Everybody knows your name because we force you to wear a name, and you feel like you're in therapy or something. It's weird.
Where everybody reads your name is not the same thing as knows your name.
It's a little different. Well, anyway, thanks as always, everybody, for listening to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. We'll come back with you with another podcast and possibly a commentary very shortly. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
See you next time.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah.